ever feel like you're constantly on, like running a race that just never ends?
Yeah, I think we all feel that way sometimes.
Today, we're tackling that feeling head on. We're going deep into a book with a pretty radical idea, which is slowing down.
We're exploring The Slow Professor,
Hmm.
Challenging the Culture of Speed in the Academy. It's by Maggie Berg and Barbara K. Sieber.
The slow professor, huh?
You might be thinking, wait, I'm not a professor.
Right.
What's in it for me? But hang on a sec. This book's actually part of a much bigger slow movement.
Yeah. I've heard of like slow food and stuff.
Right.
But a slow professor,
It's all about pushing back against that crazy, frantic pace we've all gotten used to.
I feel that.
Like slow food is all about savoring, like actually enjoying your meal and appreciating good ingredients.
Yeah.
The slow professor wants to bring that same mindfulness to work and life. Like, actually, the book argues that we can be more productive and more fulfilled when we slow down.
Okay, now I'm kind of intrigued. But how does that actually work in the real world? I mean, aren't most workplaces all about like speed and efficiency?
Exactly. And that's where the book gets really interesting. They argue that universities, of all places, are increasingly adopting what they call a corporate model.
Interesting.
So think about it. There's this constant pressure to publish research, get grants, climb that academic ladder.
Right.
It starts to sound a lot like the corporate world.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's like everyone's so focused on the next deadline, the next promotion, the next thing, instead of actually like, enjoying the process
Yeah.
or focusing on quality.
Exactly. The book's not just theorizing about this. It actually cites some pretty alarming statistics.
Okay, lay it on me.
So, for example, there was a survey done by the Canadian Association of University Teachers. They found that over 20% of professors are reporting physical and psychological health symptoms due to stress.
Wow, that's a lot. You wouldn't think professors would be the poster children for burnout.
Right. But they're facing a lot of the same pressures that we see in other workplaces, like the constant demands for productivity, the blurred lines between work and personal life, and that feeling of never doing enough.
Yep, that one hits home. Okay, so what does the book say we should do about it? Does it offer some kind of magical time management solution?
Well, it actually starts by pushing back on some of that conventional time management advice that's out there,
Oh, interesting.
particularly for academics. Some of it gets pretty extreme.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
We're talking scheduling every minute of your day,
Yeah.
working weekends, even squeezing in reading during family outings. Like,
Oh my God.
the book calls this out as totally unsustainable and actually counterproductive.
Yeah, you're telling me. I tried that whole schedule every minute thing once, and I think I lasted like 2 hours before I completely imploded.
Right. It just sets us up for failure and feeds that feeling of never being good enough.
Yeah.
One of the researchers that the book cites, Robert Boyce, he argues that we've actually become obsessed with appearing busy rather than actually being productive.
Wait, so you're saying I should just work LS, won't my boss fire me?
It's not about working less, it's about working differently.
Okay.
Boyce's research actually shows that this obsession with busyness is totally counterproductive.
Interesting.
I mean, think about it. Have you ever spent more time trying to make your work look impressive than actually making it good?
Ooh, that one stings a little. I'm definitely guilty of that. Sometimes I'm spending more time crafting the perfect email than actually doing the task the email's about.
Exactly. And that's exactly what the slow professor wants us to challenge. It's about shifting our focus from quantity to quality, from appearing busy to actually getting meaningful things done.
Okay, I'm starting to see the light here. So how do we make that shift? How do we go from feeling overwhelmed and scattered to, well, slow?
That's where this concept of timeless time comes in.
Timeless time. Is that like Doctor Who stuff?
Not quite. It's about those moments when you're so completely absorbed in something that you totally lose track of time.
Oh, yeah.
You're in a state of flow.
Ooh, yeah, I have definitely experienced that. Like when I'm writing and the words are just flowing, it's almost like being in a trance.
Exactly. And there's research by Charalampos Manomelis that's shown that academics, of all people, have the ideal personality traits for achieving this state of flow. They're passionate about their work, they're driven by curiosity, and they're persistent in their pursuit of knowledge.
Makes sense.
But the ironic thing is that the pressures of academia actually make it harder for them to tap into that flow state.
So you're saying professors are like flow ninjas who are being held back by their own environment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the same could be said for a lot of us in today's hyper-paced world.
That's true. Okay, this is all fascinating, but I'm dying to know. How do we actually cultivate more of this timeless time, this flow state? Is there a secret formula?
Well, the Slow Professor offers some practical strategies. It's not about being lazy or unproductive. It's about being intentional, about creating the conditions for deep focus and creativity.
Okay, give me an example. I'm ready to hack my brain for maximum flow.
One simple but powerful strategy is minimizing distractions.
Okay.
And I'm not just talking about turning off your phone notifications.
Ooh, you mean I have to actually close all those browser tabs I have open? But what if I need them later?
Ask yourself, do you really need them?
Good point.
Or are they just creating visual clutter and mental noise?
Probably.
The book argues that simplifying our physical and digital environments can have a huge impact on our ability to focus.
You know what? You might be onto something. I do feel a little less stressed when my desk is tidy. So, what other tips does the book offer? I'm ready to become a flow master.
Another key strategy is setting realistic goals.
Okay.
So instead of trying to do everything at once, focus on one or two key tasks each day.
Right.
Give yourself the time and space to really delve into them.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like quality over quantity.
Exactly. It's about prioritizing depth over breadth and allowing yourself to get fully immersed in the work that truly matters.
So, are you saying I should like ditch my to-do list and just go with the flow?
Not necessarily ditch it, but maybe rethink it a little.
Okay.
So instead of a mile-long list of tasks that just makes you feel stressed, try focusing on a few key goals for the week.
Okay.
Break them down into smaller, more manageable chunks. And here's another radical idea. Give yourself permission to actually enjoy the process.
Wait, enjoy work. Isn't that illegal?
It shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But you're right, we've been kind of conditioned to think of work as something to be endured, something to just get through.
Totally.
The Slow Professor argues that we need to rediscover the inherent joy and satisfaction that can come from engaging in meaningful work.
Okay, but what if your work isn't, inherently joyful? What if you're stuck in a job that just feels soul-crushing?
That's a tough one. And the book acknowledges that not everyone has the privilege of doing work they're passionate about.
Right.
But even in those situations, there might be ways to find small pockets of joy or meaning, whether it's connecting with colleagues or mastering a new skill or just finding creative ways to approach a challenging task.
Yeah. This whole conversation is making me think about how much we've internalized this idea that we have to be constantly producing, constantly striving. It's exhausting.
It is. And the Slow Professor argues that this pressure to be constantly on actually hinders our ability to do our best work.
Interesting.
It stifles creativity, it limits innovation, and ultimately, it leads to burnout.
This is all starting to sound a lot like an environmental argument. Like, sustainability isn't just about the planet, it's about our own well-being, too.
That's a brilliant connection.
Yeah.
And the book does draw parallels between the slow movement's environmental concerns and the negative impacts of the corporate model on research itself.
Okay.
There's a quote in the book from David W. Orr. He's an environmentalist. He contrasts fast knowledge with slow knowledge.
Hold on, I need to write that down. Fast knowledge versus slow knowledge. Okay, I'm ready. Tell me more.
So Orr argues that fast knowledge is all about standardization, efficiency, reproducibility.
Okay.
It's the kind of knowledge that can be easily measured and quantified.
Yeah, right.
The kind that leads to quick publications and grant funding.
Uh-huh.
But he argues that this focus on speed and efficiency often comes at the expense of depth and understanding.
So fast knowledge is like the fast food of the academic world.
Exactly. It might fill you up in the moment, but it doesn't provide much real nourishment.
Right.
Slow knowledge, on the other hand, is about taking the time to really understand a subject, to explore its complexities, and consider its broader implications.
So slow knowledge is like the slow-cooked meal that takes hours to prepare,
Right.
but is ultimately much more satisfying.
Perfect analogy. It's about savoring the process of learning, of discovery, and of making meaningful connections.
Okay, I'm totally getting this now. But how does this apply to someone who's not, an academic researcher? What if my job is more about, like, spreadsheets and meetings?
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
In any field, there's a difference between having a superficial understanding of something and having a deep, nuanced understanding.
Right.
There's a difference between being able to recite facts and being able to apply knowledge in creative and insightful ways.
So you're saying even if my job isn't about, like, curing cancer or writing poetry, I can still strive for that slow knowledge, that deeper understanding of my field?
Absolutely. It's about being curious, asking questions, challenging assumptions.
Yeah.
It's about being willing to learn from mistakes and be open to new perspectives.
Yeah.
It's about resisting the pressure to have all the answers and embracing the joy of lifelong learning.
I love that. It's like instead of being afraid of not knowing something, you're actually excited about the opportunity to learn something new.
Exactly. And the Slow Professor argues that this kind of mindset is not only beneficial for our own well-being, but also essential for creating a more just and sustainable world.
You know, this whole idea of slowing down, it's not just about work, right? It impacts how we connect with others too. Like sometimes I feel like I'm so busy rushing from one thing to the next that I don't even have time to really connect with my friends and family.
That's such an important point,
Hmm.
and the book actually addresses that directly. Berg and Sieber argue that the corporate model that's taken over academia has also eroded collegiality.
Hmm.
It's led to more isolation and a lack of support among colleagues.
It's like everyone's so busy trying to get ahead that they've forgotten how to just be, well, human with each other.
Exactly. And ironically, technology plays a role in this too. We're constantly connected virtually, but studies show that this can actually increase feelings of loneliness.
It's true. You know, Sherry Turkle, who writes about technology and society, she talks about how we often choose digital communication out of fear and a desire for control. It's easier to curate our online personas and avoid the messiness of real-life interactions.
But those face-to-face conversations, those moments of shared vulnerability and support, they're so crucial for our well-being.
I agree.
The book talks about the importance of creating what they call a holding environment.
A holding environment. What does that even mean?
So it's a workplace where people feel safe to share their struggles, to celebrate their successes, and to just be themselves without fear of judgment.
Okay.
It's about creating a culture of genuine connection and support where people feel seen and valued for who they are, not just for what they produce.
Wow, that sounds amazing. But realistically, how do you create that kind of environment in a workplace that's driven by competition and pressure?
It's definitely not easy, but the book suggests starting with small changes.
Okay, like what?
Like, instead of just firing off emails, take the time to have a real conversation with a colleague.
Yeah, like actually go to their office and, talk to them like a human being.
Right.
Radical.
Exactly. Or instead of just attending mandatory meetings, try organizing informal gatherings where people can connect on a more personal level. It's about creating those spaces for genuine human interaction,
Yeah.
for shared laughter, and for mutual support.
I think that's something we're all craving, whether we realize it or not. We're so starved for real connection, for that sense of belonging. And the Slow Professor is reminding us that we have the power to create that, both for ourselves and for each other.
You know what? I'm really feeling this idea of like reclaiming our time and attention
Yeah.
and using them in ways that like actually align with our values. It's like giving ourselves permission to say no to the things that just drain us so we can say yes to the things that really matter. But I mean,
Yeah.
let's be honest, slowing down takes courage, right?
It does. It means we have to challenge these deeply ingrained kind of societal norms, right?
The ones that tell us we always have to be striving, constantly producing, proving our worth.
Yeah, and that can feel really scary, especially in a world that seems to reward busyness and speed.
It's like we've all bought into this myth of multitasking,
Right.
you know? Like we can do it all, have it all, be it all at the same time.
And if we're not doing that, we're somehow failing.
Exactly.
Mm.
But the Slow Professor reminds us that that's just not true. Actually, research has shown that multitasking makes us less efficient, less focused, and more prone to errors.
So it's like we're not only running ourselves ragged, but we're not even doing a good job of it.
Exactly. And that's where the book's message of slowing down becomes not just a personal choice, but like an ethical imperative.
Ooh, I like that. An ethical imperative. Tell me more.
Well, remember how we talked about the corporate model kind of eroding collegiality
Right.
and creating that culture of isolation? There's these guys, Thomas Scoveholt and Michelle Trotter Matheson. In their book, The Resilient Practitioner, they argue that self-care is an ethical imperative, not just some kind of indulgence.
Because when we're burned out and exhausted, we're not only hurting ourselves, right?
Right.
We're also less able to show up for other people, both personally and professionally.
Exactly. So by prioritizing our own well-being, by slowing down, by creating that space for rest and reflection, we actually become more ethical practitioners, more engaged colleagues, more present friends, family members.
Yeah. This is making me rethink my whole definition of success. It's not about how much we do, it's about how well we do it and how well we take care of ourselves in the process.
That's a really powerful insight. And the slow professor reminds us that slowing down can actually lead to some surprising and even delightful outcomes.
Hmm.
Remember that article by Julio Alves in the Chronicle of Higher Education?
Yeah.
He was arguing that some of our most profound insights actually come when we're not actively searching for them,
Oh, interesting.
when we allow our minds to wander, to make those unexpected connections.
Right, the power of unintentional knowledge. Like when you're totally stuck on a problem and then the solution just hits you while you're like taking a walk or doing the dishes.
Exactly. And the slow professor encourages us to create space for those moments of serendipity,
Yeah.
to embrace the unexpected twists and turns in the creative process. It's about trusting that the answers will come, not by forcing them, but by creating the conditions for them to emerge organically.
So it's not about like sitting around and waiting for inspiration to strike.
No, it's about actively engaging in the world, but with a sense of openness and curiosity, rather than a sense of urgency and pressure.
Right.
It's about allowing ourselves to be surprised, to be delighted, to be moved by the world around us.
That's beautiful. It's like instead of trying to control everything, you're surrendering to the flow of life. You're
Yeah.
trusting that it will lead you where you need to go.
Exactly. And the slow professor argues that this kind of surrender is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. It's about recognizing that we don't have to have all the answers. It's okay to not know, to not have it all figured out.
I think that's a message we all need to hear right now. In a world that's so obsessed with certainty and control and having it all figured out.
It is.
The slow professor is kind of offering us a different way of being, a way of being that's more aligned with our true nature, our humanity.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And ultimately, that's what this book is really about. It's about reclaiming our humanity, our wholeness, our connection to ourselves, to each other, and to the world around us.
And it all starts with slowing down. Wow, this has been such a rich conversation. I feel like I've learned so much about myself and about the world just by exploring these ideas.
Me too. And the beauty is, this is just the beginning.
Right.
These are ideas that we can keep exploring, experimenting with, integrating into our lives in ways that feel authentic and meaningful for each of us.
And speaking of exploration, the slow professor leaves us with a final thought-provoking question. How long does it take to become educated?
Ooh, that's a good one. It challenges us to think beyond the grades and the degrees and the resumes,
Yeah.
to consider what true learning and growth really look like in our own lives. It invites us to embrace lifelong learning as a journey, not a destination.
And maybe to consider that slowing down might actually be the key to unlocking our full potential.
Maybe so.
Well, there you have it, folks. Our deep dive into the slow professor. We've explored the pressures of the corporate world, the myth of multitasking, the power of timeless time, the ethics of slow knowledge, and the importance of reclaiming collegiality in a lonely world. We've challenged you to question those deep-seated expectations of busyness and productivity, to prioritize quality over quantity, and to nurture those meaningful connections that truly nourish our souls. We've encouraged you to slow down, to be more mindful, and to rediscover the joy of the journey. And as always, we leave you with one final thought to ponder. How can you embrace the principles of the slow professor in your own life? Until next time, happy slowing down.